Aloha, o Paoa Kalani ko'u inoa. My name is Paoa Kalani Montgomery, and I'd like to welcome you to an online orientation offered by the Office of Hawaiian Education on Na Hopena A'o, or HA, a department-wide framework to develop the skills, behaviors, and dispositions that are reminiscent of Hawaii's unique context, and to honor the qualities and values of the indigenous language and culture of Hawaii. This orientation may be viewed individually or as a collective. We will prompt you at various times to pause and discuss if you are with others, or to reflect and make note of your own thoughts if you are watching it on your own. Before proceeding with the orientation, if you wish to learn more about the history of Hawaiian education in our state that led up to the establishment of OHE in February 2015, please visit the link that appears on your screen. Today's online orientation will cover 3 topics before closing. First, we provide a background of the development of the policy, or the mo'olelo of HA, so that viewers will have an understanding of the genesis of the work and key process elements of HA. Second, we dig into the construction and significance of the framework so that viewers will understand various ways to utilize the framework. Third, we work to build stronger connections to the elements of HA, so viewers may begin creating their own authentic connection and mo'olelo to HA. Thus, as you go through this orientation, we urge you to think about what resonates with you and what personal connections can you make to HA. We hope that this presentation brings clarity of understanding to the intentions of HA as outcomes for all grounded in Hawaii. In sharing the story of HA, we start with this quote said by Complex Area Superintendent Suzanne Mulcahy in 2015. "When I walk into a Hawaii public school, I want to close my eyes and know that I am in a school in Hawaii and not somewhere else." As you hear this quote, take a moment to reflect on what this means and why it might be important. If you are watching this with others, we urge you to pause the orientation and discuss these questions amongst yourselves before proceeding. It can be agreed upon that what makes Hawaii, a place unlike anywhere else, are the unique values and qualities of the indigenous language and culture. O Hawaii ke kahua o ka ho'ona auau. Hawaii is the foundation of our learning and therefore the root of Na Hopena A'o. We all share Hawaii as our home and are a part of the unique fabric and makeup of the islands. Each school is unique due to the people and place in which it resides. We hope that our schools are a reflection of the communities they serve and that the relationships with the people and places of that unique community can shine. The HA framework was thus developed by us, for us, and with us in order to strengthen and lift up the uniqueness of our island home and to honor and celebrate the people and place of Hawaii. Each school serves as a unique community, and the framework asks that we strengthen breadth for that specific community context. It also asks that we use Aina as a teacher, as the places in which we live have unique mo'olelo that can be tapped for learning opportunities that strengthen relationships, relevance, and rigor. Mo'olelo can be an incredibly powerful tool for building understanding and connections. And so as you listen to the mo'olelo of HA, be thinking about how your own mo'olelo connects to that of HA, and how we can all unite as an ohana to recraft our collective mo'olelo for the journey ahead. As we enter into this journey, we are revalidating the great power of mo'olelo, of spoken language, of storytelling. The word mo'olelo is derived from 2 words, mo'o and olelo. Mo'o meaning succession, and olelo referring to that which is spoken. In oral traditions, the power of olelo is the power of life. In our modern context, we must remember to honor the power of the spoken word and acknowledge that what we are giving life to is passed on through generations. Mo'olelo, therefore, are not just stories, but are what is perpetuated forward. We must also recognize that just as stories can be told in many different ways, words can hold many different interpretations. And so, as you see here, there can be multiple interpretations of a single word, especially in the Hawaiian language. It is intentional in the design of this orientation to also allow for multiple interpretations of Ha, so that you may find alignment in your own way, and we may together build off of our strengths as a collective in this work. When narrowing in on the word mo'o, we share here one interpretation of the significance of the mo'o or lizard, as told by families of Moloka'i in the book Tales from the Night Rainbow. The imagery of the mo'o speaks of the eyes representing the future as it looks out, the front legs representing the opio or the youth, who are scurrying forward with drive and ambition, the spine representing the makua or the adults who serve as the stable backbone and productive working force, the back legs representing our kupuna or elders who keep us steady and grounded, and the tail representing the iwi or our ancestors who are always with us. While the tail tends to get cut off, it always grows back, reminding us that our ancestors are always with us, never to be forgotten, and that we cannot be disconnected from our roots. Life can then be thought of in succession as the mo'o. So we may ask ourselves the following: how do we move about staying intact, ensuring that all parts of us are moving forward towards generational abundance? In our schools, how are we creating this connection from head to tail like the mo'o? What keeps us grounded and what is guiding us? These are some of the foundational questions that guide the story of Ha. Our intention is to share the wholeness and connectivity of the Ha Mo'olelo, in which we are learning from our past to help shape our future. In the realm of education, we are now shifting from thinking about individual success on a learner's path to now thinking about the system supports that will be guiding them down that path. The Ha story begins with the acknowledgement by folks in leadership that our education system was less about who we are as people who reside in and are a part of the unique place of Hawaii, and more about educational outcomes that focused us away from that idea. And so in 2012, an audit of all BOE policies was initiated to determine which were still relevant and which required amending. One of the policies put in front of the board for amendment in 2014 was BOE Policy 4000, which outlined the GLOs we know of today, or the General Learner Outcomes for all of our students. Recognizing that these GLOs are outdated, being that this policy had not been amended since 1999, the new amendment to BOE Policy 4000 was intended to produce updated values-based GLOs that reflected the unique cultural context of Hawaii. The amendments to this policy were deferred to the Student Achievement Committee, then chaired by Cheryl Lupenui. To ensure the community had a strong and well-informed voice in the creation of these GLOs, Cheryl formed the BOE Policy 4000 Advisory Work Group, charged with reviewing the current standards and curricula to advise on the recreation of the Hawaii-specific GLOs. As they journeyed forward in talking about outcomes from a Hawaiian context, they held on to the following values in the process. 1. Honoring relationships. 2. Honoring Hawaii. And 3. Honoring the inclusion of all. The work group then began drafting outcome statements, first in the Hawaiian language. They used Olelo No'eau to describe each theme they had in mind, to help shape their thinking while grounding in Hawaii. They then added an English narrative to build a larger picture of what each theme or outcome meant. Upon completion of the first draft, they went through multiple revisions based on input received from various communities. The following emerged as themes from the input process that guided the final recommendation to the board. First, there was no implementation plan, and so questions arose about how we will be able to practically apply the outcomes in our various contexts. Second, Some felt as though the framework was too Hawaiian, or not relevant or inclusive of all, due to the language barrier when it comes to understanding the Olelo no Eau and outcome statements written in Hawaiian. Third, being that the Hawaii DOE is an assessment-driven culture, many asked, how do you assess breadth, and how would the system hold people accountable to reaching the outcomes? Fourth, they claimed that there was a lack of teacher and student feedback. Fifth, they were concerned that this was too much change too quick with the conclusion of Race to the Top and people feeling burnt out. Sixth, this framework is outcomes rather than standards-based, and so some asked, how will these two approaches align, being that the DOE's standards-based system uses a front-end design rather than a back-end design? Many felt that these outcomes must first be modeled by the adults in the system in order for students to understand them. Based on the feedback, the board passed HA as an ends policy known as BOE Policy E3, and Naho Pena'a'o would thus be deemed as system-wide outcomes. The Office of Hawaiian Education was given 3 years to pilot HA so that we would have the necessary time to develop a system-wide implementation plan. HA, therefore, is not meant to simply be a replacement of the GLOs, but rather to function as a set of outcomes upon which the whole system shall operate. In other words, the framework is a way that we will be going about business in every department of the DOE. And so this policy represents a shift from student-focused outcomes to now outcomes for all of us as an ohana in this education system. This effort to create a system-wide implementation plan requires us to lead using a community-based process that values collective voice and relationships grounded in trust. We wanted 3 years to go out into the field and lift up what is already happening because HA already exists in our community. Our office is therefore just a voice at the state level that gets to bring together the voices of the collective. And so within these 3 years of valuable collaboration, we are conducting a series of HA initiatives with those ready and able to provide evidence of successful tools and practices around a set of well-designed competencies and indicators of success. We will use the results of successful HA initiatives to inform and integrate into future educational strategies and plans. Take a minute to reflect on the key elements of this process that led to HA. Ask yourself, or if with others, discuss the following questions. What was important about this process that was employed? And what lessons might be applied to other processes? What we have learned at OHE is that relationships and process are essential to this work of developing a learning environment or setting the HA context that creates flexibility, inclusivity, equity, and excellence. Staying connected to the people, collaborating across departments, and looking up to see how we fit into this larger ohana is so important to this process. Therefore, we believe that a community-based, generational approach is extremely important, and our intention is that Naho Pena'a'o inspires this approach throughout our education system in Hawaii. As we work through understanding the significance and construction of the framework in this next section, please refer to our Naho Pena'a'o pamphlet located at the link on your screen. Before we dig into the framework, we'd like to share how the name Naho Pena'a'o came to be. Kau'i Sang, who was on Cheryl Lupenui's advisory work group and is now the director of OHE, was assigned to the task to name the framework. To reflect the outcomes-based policy, she came up with Naho Pena'a'o. Na, denoting a plural, hopena, meaning end goals or results, and a'o, indicating the two-way process of learning and teaching. Keep in mind how teaching and learning being the same word might be significant when thinking of this process in the classroom. Interestingly enough, HA was the unintended resulting acronym of this name, which also denotes a similar reciprocal process of inhaling and exhaling. In referencing the mo'o metaphor, we have a profound belief that we are being guided in this practice. Here we share the chicken skin story of how the project got its name. The writing team began with the following guiding question: what kind of vision beyond academic achievement does the Hawaii State Department of Education have for their public school graduates? The team began to answer this question by crafting outcome statements in Olelo, Hawaii. Afterwards, the group discussed these statements, and one particular member helped to identify English translations. This meeting was held in Hilo. Cheryl and Kau'i then got on the plane to return to Oahu after the meeting. It was Kau'i's task to name the framework, and Cheryl's task to organize the outcomes. They happened to not be sitting next to one another, and so each of them worked independently on their own task. When they got off the plane, the two joined up to share what they came up with, and they realized that the acronym for the title Kau'i came up with was HA, and the 6 English statements Cheryl organized spelt out breath. The story of Kau'i and Cheryl coming off the plane and realizing that Ha equaled breath was one of the many unforeseen validations that have arisen around Ha. Oftentimes, we as educators do not acknowledge these unforeseen validations or listen to our na'au intelligence or gut instincts. We hope throughout this process to rebuild trust in our na'au intelligence and be open to the many ways that inspiration, learning, and knowing can come to us. If you now open the PDF document of the Nahopena'a'o pamphlet, you will see a brief introduction of Ha, including an overview and a list of names of the contributing writers on page 1. Again, here we highlight the purpose of Ha being a framework for cultivating learning environments that will allow all of us to strengthen our sense of breath and to truly believe, understand, model, and become these lifelong learning outcomes. On page 2 of the pamphlet, you will see a list of illustrative points and indicators of the 6 outcomes in English. This was crafted as a way to ease some concern that the framework was too Hawaiian by providing English interpretations. However, these are not meant to be a checklist, but instead serve as a touch point to help bring clarity. To further engage with Ha, we encourage groups to actually develop their own set of indicators of breath, relevant to their particular context. This will reflect a community building process that requires a deepened sense of ownership and engagement. While you may not necessarily be able to measure Ha, you can collectively agree on what the indicators would be. So as you take a deeper look at the 6 outcomes, begin to think about what breath would look, feel, and sound like to you in your own context or learning environment. We will continue to build on this personal connection to Ha in the next section of this orientation. On page 3 of the pamphlet, you will see an image of the actual framework. It is important to note the overlap of the 6 circles because the outcomes should be seen as a whole. While you can break each one of the outcomes down, which we will do in this section just to dig deeper into the meanings of each of them, all 6 should be brought back together to create the full picture symbolic of the holistic learning environment in which Ha thrives. Each bubble of the framework includes the individual outcomes, starting with the phrase strengthened sense of. It is critical to note that Ha is a strengths-based model, meaning that breath already exists. The intent is then, how do we intentionally focus on the outcome to strengthen it? An example of a strengths-based approach is the recent change of the Board of Education policy on English language learners to multilingual learners. ELL implies that one is lacking in English, but a MLL policy implies that someone is coming with more than one language and is strengthening a particular language. This immediately makes a person feel that they are coming in with a strength versus a deficit. Under each outcome phrase is a descriptive olelo no'eo, which provides a metaphorical understanding of the outcome. All cultures utilize proverbs. These wise sayings can be easily shared and can help us access other contextual layers of understanding. Perhaps there are proverbs that we as learners bring that could apply to each of the outcomes as well. This could be a time for you as an individual or together with your collective to connect your own culture, experiences, and mo'olelo to the different terms and olelo no'eo. If you are in a classroom setting, this could even be a great opportunity for your students to further engage with the framework and come up with other olelo no'eo that could be applied. Under each olelo no'eo are the original statements or descriptions of the outcomes that were initially drafted in Olelo Hawaii. They are left in Olelo Hawaii to ensure the integrity of the language and to acknowledge that the framework is grounded in this place. This provides a great opportunity to connect with Olelo Hawaii speakers and deconstruct the meaning while also building language capacity. So while we will give you a basic interpretation of these statements in the next section, we urge you to engage with others in your own process of interpretation. Each outcome bubble is packed with meaning and significance and is therefore meant to be unpacked by individuals and collective groups to make sense of the outcomes in the various contexts we are in. When we first started to share the framework, we did not have the vocabulary yet to talk about what ha was. Over time, the vocabulary is starting to stick, so you'll hear us say things like ha conditions, or ha wheel, or ha progressions. What we learned in regards to the framework itself is that it contained more than the idea that ha is whole. Over time, the learning that surfaced was that ha is layered, and that makes the original overlapping of the diagram even more meaningful. There are 4 terms that have been identified to express the layers of ha. The first is kahanu, which symbolizes taking a breath in. This level acknowledges that ha exists everywhere. It is the process of identifying it and placing intention to strengthen it. The second layer is ke'ahe, where we now begin to blow or breathe gently, feeling the impact of the breath. This level acknowledges that ha is an exchange, an inhale and an exhale, and that our actions have impact. This requires that we become aware of that impact and the reciprocal nature of our interactions, and begin to deepen our intention to strengthen the ha outcomes. The third layer is ke'aho, representing holding the breath in its wholeness. This level looks at how we hold ha as a whole, even in times of challenge. The level of learning takes us deeper as we challenge ourselves to stay ha-ful in many circumstances. The final layer is ua-ha loa, or the long breath. This level is about transference of ha and the ability to expand ha beyond oneself and to generate ha for others as well. Ha is sustained when it becomes far-reaching. Our takeaway is thus that ha is not a linear progression. We enter each situation and environment with various levels of knowledge, skills, and relationships, and so for each experience, we may have a different level of proficiency. We also may all have a different level of readiness to engage in ha. And so do remember that ha is not linear, but is rather an evolution, which is inherently more circular in process. While we may sometimes go through a linear process, the learning of ha continues to deepen upon itself and reveal layers of meaning as more intention is placed to strengthening the outcomes. With a deeper understanding of the mo'olelo and construction of ha, we can begin to bridge and connect our own mo'olelo to ha as we further unpack the meaning of each of the outcomes in this section. Before doing so, we encourage you to first view our ha video located on the Nahopena'a'o homepage of the Hawaii DOE website. Please visit the following link to view the video before moving on to the next slides. The Ha video should have grounded you in envisioning what each of the 6 outcomes look like. The first being belonging, he pili vehena ole, a relationship that cannot be undone. Here we acknowledge the significance of relationships and the shift to a collective space where we start with belonging, because belonging requires that there are others or something else beyond yourself that you are connected to. We must strengthen that sense of grounding and rooting, because knowing who you are and where you come from will help you know where you are going. Ku pa'awi ko'u wahi no ka pono o ka ohana ke kaiaulu ka aina a me ka honua nei. I stand firm in my position or place with righteousness in my family, community, the land, and the world. Next is responsibility. Makahana ka'ike, makaimi kaloa'a. In working, one learns. Through initiative, one acquires. We learn through the process of experiencing, engaging, and doing. Research shows that we learn best when we are actively engaged in the process of learning, and so we must seek out those opportunities to do so. Awamo au I ko'u kuleana no ka ho'oko pono ana I a kuleana mai ka mua a ka hope. I carry my responsibilities as it is my privilege and fulfill them rightfully from beginning to end. This asks that we can identify what our responsibilities are and acknowledge that fulfilling them are a privilege. To do it rightfully, we must see it through from beginning to end. Next is excellence. A'ohe ulu e loa'a I ka pōkole o ka lo. If your pole is too short, then you cannot reach the ulu at the top of the tree. In other words, there is no success without preparation. Success is measured more by the level of preparation and the journey or process of learning more than by a particular output. No ke au ma ke ala ku pono e hiki aku ai au I ko'u ku lana po'okela I hono. I strive or persevere along the righteous path with the tools and skills needed in order to achieve my best. Success is also meant to be defined by the learner in collaboration with others to help lift up the inherent gifts that we all come with. Next is aloha. Just like mo'olelo, there are multiple layers and meanings of aloha, which we encourage you to further explore. To deepen our understanding, we turn to one saying, E o pu ali'i, have the heart of a chief. By exploring the role and actions of the ali'i who gave much of themselves to the people, we come to gain further insight on the term aloha, the depth of its meaning, and the many ways in which it can be applied. Hana au me ke aloha e ilinaho pena mai ka I maluna o'u, o ka ohana, ke kaiaulu, ko'u aina a me ka honua nei. I do things with love so that good results may fall upon me, my family, my community, my land, and the world. We acknowledge here that everything we do has an impact, and if we work through aloha, we spread a positive impact. Let's pause for a minute to think about the connection from belonging to responsibility to excellence to aloha and now to total well-being. Having a good foundation will help us strive for excellence, but if you don't have aloha and a healthy body, you won't get very far. This brings us to total well-being. Ua ola loko I ke aloha. Love is imperative to one's mental and physical welfare. We must take care of ourselves so that we can help others. Mālama au I ka no'ono'o, ka na'au, ke kino a me ka pilina uhane me ke aloha I pono ko'u ola. I nurture my heart and mind, my na'au or deeper thinking, my body, and a positive spiritual relationship for a healthy life. Well-being extends beyond just physical and mental, but also emotional and spiritual. To be whole, we must nurture all of these components. Finally, we come to Hawaii. O Hawaii ku'uaina kilohana. Hawaii is my prized place. No matter if you were born in Hawaii or not, this is our shared place, and taking care of it should be our collective goal. Ho'ike au ke aloha a me ka mahalo no ko'u aina kilohana o Hawaii nei. I show my love and appreciation for my beloved home called Hawaii. We must cherish our land, for it serves as one of our greatest teachers. This is an opportunity to build your mo'olelo around Ha. Take a few minutes to pause and reflect on or discuss the following questions. What about Ha resonates with you? What mo'olelo might you share that relates to the ideas presented in Ha? How have you demonstrated Ha in either your personal or professional life? It is important to first build a personal connection with Ha and interpret it in a way that is authentic to you. One of the key components of the learning progression is to craft your own Ha mo'olelo and watch how it shifts over time as you deepen your engagement with the framework. We begin to close this orientation with our ohe or bamboo theory of change. In year 1 of the Ha pilot, ohe has focused on foundations, feeding the root system so Ha has a strong base from which to grow. The roots represent the conditions being nurtured within the Hawaii DOE that create an environment that nourishes people, processes, and systems that strengthen Ha. Bamboo can grow fast and strong, depending on how well the roots system is nurtured. Ha requires time to mindfully identify and create the conditions needed for the root system to become embedded and interconnected, so when the shoots grow, the foundation is strong. A key lesson from the ohe theory of change brings us back to the following quote. "O Hawaii ke kahua o ka ho'ona auau." Hawaii is the foundation of our learning and knowledge. The answers to vital questions in creating thriving learning environments for our keiki can be found in Hawaii. Ohe has prioritized reaching out to strengthen relationships across the broader education system and community to uplift knowledge from and of our home. Ultimately, what we are learning about creating transformative experiences is more a remembering that comes from our na'au, our Hawaiian place of learning, knowledge, and wisdom. Learning is sacred, and when we remember this, Ha can be passed on for generations to come. After working on building a solid foundation upon which Ha may thrive, we are beginning to expand our roots through identified strands. Prior to the launch of the Ha pilot in February 2016, the Office of Hawaiian Education gathered education stakeholders to craft a delivery plan that would guide the work of the 3-year Ha pilot. After a year of piloting, the following 6 strands of work have emerged: assessment for learning, tools, resources, and communications, professional development, pilot sites, funding and capacity, and convenience. This diagram is meant to be viewed as dynamically interconnected, unique aspects of the pilot that stand on their own ground, while simultaneously possessing the learnings and goals of the other 5. Visit the link on the next slide to access the Year 1 in Review report, where you can read more about the work that emerged and is aspired to be completed within each of these 6 strands during the remainder of the Ha pilot. Mahalo nui for watching this online orientation about Nahopena A'o. Please feel free to reach out to our office if you have any further questions or would simply like to connect and collaborate around Ha. The contact info for myself and our Ha Special Projects Manager, Jessica Warshell, is listed below, as well as links to our website and Year 1 in Review for you to read and share. Aloha no, ma'alama pono.